at each stage of the Sabbath ladder, people are asked to relinquish more of their power and especially their privilege, and insisted on the relevance of this principle because it has implications for all aspects of our lives. He assertively guided us to the essence of the Sabbath as exemplified by God themselves. In Exodus 20 verses 8 to 11, it is said that we must remember the day of the Sabbath and keep it holy. 6 days you shall labor and do all your work, but the seventh one is a Sabbath to the Lord your God. On it you shall not do any work, for in 6 days the Lord made heaven and earth, the sea and all that is in them, and rested on the seventh day. Therefore the Lord blessed the Sabbath and made it holy. And it is also understood as when we keep the day of the Sabbath holy, the Lord will bless us and we will achieve a quiet power for good as individuals, families, communities, and nations. In this context, by keeping the Sabbath holy, I strongly believe it will make us whole to the point of unlocking our full potential. For that to happen, we must be intentional during the Sabbath to be able to claim that power of self in its purest and holistic form. This intentionality in claiming the power of self was demonstrated by God themselves. God actually set the example of intentional rest and intentional power claiming for us to follow. Therefore, claiming your personal power on the day of the Sabbath constitutes a godly way of caring for yourself, physically, emotionally, and spiritually. And to also navigate the main intersections of your individuality and growth to understand who you could become, who you would like to become, and who you are afraid of becoming. In other words, assessing all your possible selves. I believe Michel Foucault called this process subjectivation, when considering the actions exercised on the self by the self. Actions by which we take responsibility for ourselves and by which we change, purify, transform, and transfigure ourselves. It is evident that the subjectivation through the relationship of the self with the self starts from a deep care of the self, or a deep care for the self. The Sabbath is the best place and time for that. Depending on your age, activities, being students, faculty, staff, or administrators, especially students, the Sabbath can be the place and time to renegotiate the power of self-esteem, power of self-confidence, and power of self-belief, self-efficacy, and finally, power of self-care. However, all of these are possible only if the self becomes decolonized. Many authors discussed such a notion using the concept of decoloniality of the self. I believe in its original Latin American term, it is referred to as la decolonialidad de sí mismo. And for the French speakers, it is understood as la décolonialité du soi, because in many cultures, the self is not only person-centered, it is also collectively and globally grounded. Therefore, understanding the macro dimensions influencing the self and the quest for self-actualization and community growth is a priority. It is a priority because it will help us better understand and relate to the world around us to become more empathetic to others, empathetic to their journey, their joy, and their burden when facing injustices, just as God intended. Again, the Sabbath is the best place and time to explore this important aspect of the power of self. Personally, I generally use the Sabbath to strengthen and refine my praxeological self, which is quite critical, reflexive, and empathetic process. It allows me to recenter my own responsibilities along with the responsibilities of others through communal relations and the quest for social, economic, racial, and environmental justice. It would be quite naive of me if I completed this Kickstart and did not highlight few out of many circumstances or stressors that can impact our pathways to fruitful and powerful Sabbath. Without unpacking them, those stressors can be compassion fatigue, burnout, racialized invisible labor, uncompensated emotional labor, racial battle fatigue, etc. It would be important for you to pay attention to many of those stressors in your line of work. In the end, Crouch reminds us all of this question. If you worked hard for 6 years, what would you do in that 7th? To that, he responded, the 7th year ensured that even people whose existence was largely defined by subsistence would explore the broader and deeper implications of image bearing in order to fully explore what it means to be made in God's image. On that note, I will encourage you to always take time to explore the true power of self, understand and relate well to the world around you, and enjoy the journey. Whether you agree or not, that journey that I just mentioned is made of multiple Sabbaths. Use them wisely. Thank you.